Hello. Today I will be featuring the Maass, the German tier 7 DD for a ranked analysis. Now, the reason I wasn't actually intending on doing a commentary on this one at all, but one of my Twitch viewers, Halamachi, donated a bunch of doubloons so that I could free XP to it, so I could actually play it in ranked. And of course thanks to him, and I'm very happy that he did, because I get to correct a mistake. I had this Maass listed as not recommended, but I feel like that's wrong, because I had it listed not recommended with ships like the Kiev and the Akatsuki. Note that I have stock range on it, I haven't upgraded the range on it yet, so that's why I only have 9.9. With the 10% increase, it has 10.8. First thing I do, my team is going to A, so I'm going to go scout B, because, well, their gunboats are sims, and one of the things that is actually quite good about this Maass is that it has, even though the firepower, I mean, it has 5 guns, the HE is questionable, the AP is very good if you get to use it on broadsides. It's actually quite tanky. At 20k HP, it's one of the tankier DDs you can get at tier 7. Of course, it does take the increased damage from AP, which is quite annoying, and you sometimes lose big chunks to AP volleys, but that doesn't stop it from being incredibly good at taking on other gunboats 1 versus 1, which is of course why I went alone to B, because I figured if they send a gunboat here, I can take it pretty easily. With the help of Hydro, you're pretty much impossible to torpedo. And working through 20k HP as an enemy DD is no easy feat. Now the AP, as I said, is questionable. If you get broadsides, even on Royal Navy cruisers, you can use it from pretty much max range, but otherwise from long ranges you mostly want to be using HE, because it's not very reliable, the penetration is so low. Now, originally I had this listed with the Akatsuki and the Kiev as not recommended, but I'm gonna have to move it up 1 tier, maybe like even 1.5 tier. Like, I had this as not recommended, but it's definitively competitive. It might even be good in this current meta, because it's really good at counter flanking, which means when the enemy has a Kiev, the enemy has some sort of gunboat that is trying to flank and harass your team, you go and counter them. The reason why it's so strong at this is of course the Hydro prevents the torps from hitting, and in a straight up 1 versus 1 fight where other people can't interfere, it's very, very strong. Where other people can interfere, it suffers of course because of the increased AP damage it takes. My Mayoko, if you look at the minimap, my Mayoko torped from the G line into A, where our sims had just killed the enemy Leningrad. You should never of course do that. Torping from the back like that is just, it's a death sentence to friendly DDs. They have too much to worry about. They are focusing on dodging enemy torps and keeping track of enemy ships. You can't have enough focus to also keep track of potential friendly torps hitting you in the back. And now he even tries to blame the team after that, and he continues sailing, showing full broadside after torping a friendly DD. So I guess we can assume this Mayoko is quite a potato. I'm rank 6 in this commentary, by the way, for those who are wondering. I have moved on to rank 5 to 1 bracket after this. But this was, I think, yeah, I was rank 6 in this game. Of course, the information I gained from this fight was the Fiji he shot, and then he got his smoke faded, so I got to know where the Fiji was, so I instantly torped into the smoke. The torps are quite strong, they are very stealthy, quite fast. The damage is not very high on them, but the stealthiness and the speed kind of makes up for it, and the very low cooldown, especially of course since I run Adrenaline Rush, which means the more damage I take, the faster they reload, so you end up using them quite often. I got spotted there as I closed the distance, so I popped speed boost and increased my speed even more, because I knew that Sims was spotted on a minimap, so the only thing that could be here is the Shiratsuyu, and I will happily rush him down and quickly kill him off, since once again he was slightly isolated from his teammates, meaning his teammates could not help him out and could not help in the fight. And you can see just how quickly you can actually melt enemy DDs. The HE is weaker than AP. And there you see, of course, what happens as soon as a battleship or something joins in the battle. You see how much massive AP damage this ship takes. That's, of course, one of the reasons why I don't think the Maass will ever be top tier. Because, well, the increased damage it takes means if you get spotted while the enemy guns are all ready to fire, you take much more damage than any other DD would. But, of course, it still has its moments. As you can see, the AP damage I'm pumping out on this guy. And, of course, the great torps. Well, low damage, but great torps, and of course, I get no flooding. That's pretty typical. But this kind of flanking maneuver is especially well suited for this ship. Mostly though, I've been playing it as a counter flanker, like when the enemy tries to, they send a DD out, like something to harass or try to flank or whatever, then I go and counter it with the Maass, because it's especially well suited for that kind of gameplay. In general, you want to fight where your team can help and where the enemy team can't fire. You never want to fight in the open, like inside A. If I would have gone into A and picked a fight with the rest of them, I would have melted so incredibly quickly, because of course the increased damage you take makes you so squishy. But the fast torpedo reload really kicks in here. You can see, of course, because of the additional damage I've taken, Adrenaline Rush is really in power here. And the torpedoes have already reloaded by the time he's closing the distance. In fact, my reload on the torps is down to 1 minute and 14 seconds, which on 8.5 km torps is not very much. I already know he's dead by now, so I instantly switch target to the Sims. And the HE damage being slow is a bit of an issue, but the arcs are pretty decent. I mean, they're not Russian arcs, they're not Blisk arcs, but they are pretty decent. And when you use HE, meaning you don't need to get those pens, yes, the damage isn't much. What was that, 200 damage hit on him. You still have such a fast reload and such a quantity of fire, because you get 5 guns, that you can kill off DDs quite easily with it. AP is only really useful against I guess Russian DDs that give you broadside, and things like Bliskas and such giving you broadside, but most of the time it's safer to go for the consistent damage with HE against enemy DDs than try to use AP, especially if one of them gets the idea to start angling and suddenly negates all your damage to 0, which is of course a pretty big issue. Another thing I've noticed with the Maass is people tend to underestimate it. They underestimate it a lot, kind of like I did. So I guess I can't really blame them for underestimating it, because I made the same mistake. Like you can see in chat, my teammates are quite surprised at how much damage and like work I'm doing in for the team here, because, well, the ship is chronically underestimated in that sense. Of course, the weaknesses are still there, the German DD weaknesses. You saw just how much damage the Nagato did to me, like a Nagato using AP of all things. Even though he was shooting at a broadside, I wasn't angled where he got normal pens, I was showing broadside, but of course German DDs take additional damage from AP, and that's one of the things that kind of compensate for the high HP pool. So you want to take a more loner type of gameplay. Well, I mean, when I say loner, I don't mean you want to play it like a Kiev, which is harassed from a flank or something all alone. I mean more the fact that you don't want to be right in the thick of the battle. You can still stick close to your team, but you want to pick your fights in situations where you can't get shot at too heavily by the enemy team. Because unlike the rest of the DDs that are small, agile, get plenty of overpens, you just take big heavy hits, and that's not very fun. Battleship Scharnhorst gives me broadside. I can finally use the German AP, which is of course has very high alpha damage, as you can see here. I managed to get my Kraken as well, which is always great. And the fast torpedo reload, as mentioned, kicks in once more. I reverse fast out, or to get the optimal angle on those torps, and I move back into my last cloud that's just fading. Of course, the very low duration German smokes is another huge minus. You can't really smoke up your teammates with this smoke at all. Well, you can, but it's such limited cover because of the very short duration that you shouldn't count on it too much. Managed to score the 6th kill as well, which is of course always satisfying, and the game ends. Pretty good money, pretty good XP as well. 106k damage, not the highest, but then again this was a game with a lot of DDs, so you don't tend to get too high of a damage scores in these types of games. Moving on to the team score, 2200 base XP, which is of course always great, especially since we had a Nazi that killed our Sims, who was doing a good job until he died. I mean, he killed their Leningrad, but then he got team killed by the potato, so unfortunate for him, but still a pretty good game overall, or well, a very good game I could say. Detailed report, only a 9-minute game really, and you can see just how little, even though I shot a fair amount of HE, 63 shells, how little damage the HE actually did is pretty obvious. Your main damage comes from the AP, but it's pretty hard to always get to use it because the AP bounces extremely easily. So HE is the safer option to use, especially when fighting other DDs. Anyway, let's move on to my recommended build for this ship. Alright, as usual I start off with the modules. I have since upgraded the ship fully, but you want to start with the hull, followed by the torpedoes, followed finally by the range. That was the thing I was missing in my commentary, the range. Because the 9.9 range is usually plenty enough, because, well, you struggle to actually shoot from outside of that range regardless. Damage control and smoke gen, hydro and engine boost, that's the priority. You want to get premium consumables. Main armaments mod 1, aiming system mod 1, propulsion mod 1. Now there is worth, and propulsion mod 2. It is worth mentioning that if you have the engine boost mod that you get at rank 9 as a reward, it's quite nice to be used on this ship. I mean, any ship that can use engine boost greatly benefits, because this is pretty much the only new upgrade that is worth using. The other ones are garbage, but this one is pretty damn good. So slotting this one is pretty recommended. However, since I haven't really decided how much I'm gonna play the Maass, I haven't bothered slotting it. You can see the rudder shift 4.2, hence why I use propulsion mod 2 as well. Captain perks, preventive maintenance, followed by last stand, followed by survivability expert. Once again, your tankiness is your strength. You want to enhance that strength even further. Concealment expert to get that 6.8, adrenaline rush, and finally priority target, which is actually pretty important on the Mayhem, because on the Maass, sorry, because of how much damage you take when shot upon. So knowing when a lot of people focusing you is pretty important. If I had more captain points, I'd probably get superintendent with a 16-point captain. If I had even more, like a 19-point or 18-point captain, I'd probably get, I think maybe jack of all trades could be very, very good. Alternatively, torpedo reload could also be very, very strong. In fact, torpedo reload would probably be better for a full-point captain. Anyway, that was my Leberecht Maass ranked analysis. I will have to move the ship up. It's not nearly as bad as the Akatsuki and Kiev, which I feel like have nothing to offer over other competitors. The Leberecht Maass, on the other hand, does have this incredibly tanky ship combined with the decent firepower and a good torpedo reload to make it actually fairly decent in the current rank meta. Anyway, that was my Maass commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.